It's like, all right, welcome back from
back.
our commercial break where we're going to play Let's Build a Deck.
Oh, not that.
Exactly. And so, finally got it set up so that we're able to see, but it is no surprise that today's card is one of Dalton's favorite. Dalton, tell us a little bit about one of your favorite cards.
Okay, so this is my favorite card, not because it is a good card. I will preface that way. While you are on that website, I want you to go ahead and scroll up a little bit so that we can look at something. So Glaceon is my favorite Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
Hands down, no questions asked. Glaceon's my favorite Pokemon. So the reason that I want this deck to work is because Glaceon's my favorite Pokemon, and I see it right there, Glaceon GX. This was my favorite deck that has existed in Pokemon cards. So I want to make this a relevant thing. I want to make this good again because that deck right there, that card that is kind of highlighted for you, that was the deck that brought me into the Pokemon TCG. So it's like I've been collecting forever. This deck right here, Freezing Gaze, Glaceon, so much fun. This was my favorite, and this is actually the reason Glaceon's my favorite Pokemon, was because Glaceon was not in Pokemon Blue, obviously. And so when I started playing the
But it's a
TCG,
blue Pokemon.
right? When I started playing the TCG, actually, this is the deck that I built and I loved. And so since then, Glaceon has been my favorite Pokemon, and it is because of that card right there. And so after that card rotated forever ago, I have wanted it to be relevant for so long, and then Glaceon got a V, and it looks like this, and it's beautiful, and I wanted it to be good, and it's not. And so that's what we're doing today is we're gonna make it good. Between the two of us, we've got this. We can make this the best deck in the world. But I
Well, hold
hope
on.
so.
You remember the rules? Remember the rules of Let's Build a Deck. Basically, we're not gonna give you a deck that's going to win tournaments every single time. But
You shut your mouth.
but
This
we
deck is gonna win it all. Worlds
the
2024.
the purpose of Let's Build a Deck is we want to take cards that are more underrated from kind of when their times are coming in, especially for cards that have been our favorites. And I did this with Vulpix. This is how I built the deck that I did do really well with in locals and did really well with on over in Knoxville. And the main purpose of this is how do we maximize the potential of what this deck is, how do we make it work, and then how do we make it actually fun, which Glaceon has tons and tons of potential. So I wanted to put that asterisk on there so that people don't get all mad in the comments of I took this Glaceon, this thing sucks. And it's well, you're not getting your money back from this. So
Maybe Glaceon didn't suck. Maybe you're just a bad pilot. That's all I'm saying. That sounds like a skill issue.
Honestly, I can't play your decks. I don't know. I don't know how you beat me with your decks all the time. I'm this is insane.
At the end of the day, if you're not both mad, you didn't play right. I mean, it sounds like a skill issue.
Exactly. And so we're diving on into Glaceon V. And so basically what Glaceon V does is just the V card of it is it's got Frozen Awakening, so you can search your deck for a card that evolves from this Pokemon, put it onto this Pokemon to evolve it, shuffle your deck. Obviously, it ends your turn. But there is just a couple of options, really, that are in the standard format. So you've got the Glaceon V-Star and the Glaceon V-Max. Dalton's holding them up. And so, Dalton, tell us a little bit about the V-Star first, and then we'll go into the V-Max as well as I pull them up.
So the V-Star is your primary attacker in this deck. The V-Star, what it does is 180 damage. It does this Icicle Shot, and during your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. And so what you're doing is you are hitting them for 180, which kills the support Pokemon, or kind of get somebody stuck and they can't retreat. So like we talked about earlier this episode, there's not a whole lot of heavy switching. Switching is becoming more and more mandatory because there's just no one's doing it. People are running things like Beach Court. People are running things like the double turbo to attach, pull back. And so what Glaceon's doing is saying, you're stuck. You can't get out. I'm 180ing, and I'm going to hit you again next turn and take you out.
Oh, yeah.
And then once per game, you've got your V-Star attack, which does 220, which is one of the magic numbers of Pokemon. So you're knocking out most Pokemon Vs. And then also, you're not taking damage on your next turn.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so the Glaceon V-Star, it's really good for just that quick little locking somebody into place. It's kind of like the Mawile that's been really popularized by the Lost Box decks, but, with extra damage on top of that. And then also there is the... I gotta click the right right parts of it. There is the VMAX as well, which what this does is it prevents all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's Pokemon VMAX, except any Glaceon VMAX, and then it does 150 to the active and then 30 to the bench. And so this is kind of what we were talking about a little bit. This is why, if you know me, I've been trying to make Zeraora V, Star, and VMAX work for the longest time, and this was one of the other like sides of it where you have like you've got the V-Star of the Pokemon as well as the VMAX, which you've got different options for different things to be able to play against it and fight against it and fight against different things. And so this is a walling off Pokemon, very similar, goes off with the Glaceon GX that we were just talking about, one of Dalton's favorite cards. So instead of it walling off the GX and EX Pokemon, big EX, not to be confused with little EX, it is walling off the VMAX Pokemon. And so this card it's gonna be a little bit relevant for some of the matchups, and so we'll talk a little bit more about kind of like how, when I'm like trying to maximize the counts of different cards, not only just maximize the playability of it, we'll go into a little bit of that of like what's actually going to be the best case scenario for different things. So
yeah,
in my opinion, one of the best ways to start it off with the card that you're trying to play around it, typically you want to have 4 of that in there. So I'm going to go ahead and add in 4 of the Frozen Awakening Glaceon, because the other Glaceon is bad. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it.
I will up front and say the other side. I want a 3-1.
You want a 3-1 of this one?
I think having one of that one. I think one of Butt Glaceon is good.
Butt Glaceon, okay.
Because while it does not evolve, what you're doing is you're getting that second energy, which means on your next turn you will have 3 energy and you're coming in and you're attacking. You don't want that every turn. You don't want that every game. But I think a 3-1 is correct, or a 2-1. I think that having one of the other helps.
Okay. And so we've got the 3. Let's start it off with then. We've got 3 of the Glaceon that evolves, and we've got 1 Butt Glaceon, which gets you a little bit more water. And then I think that probably either a 2 or a 3 of the Glaceon. I would say probably a 2 of the Glaceon V-Star, and then maybe a 1 of the VMAX. Just in case.
You only want 1 VMAX, yeah.
Yeah, at most you want 1 VMAX. Sometimes you might even be able to cut the VMAX just in case. And then also, another card that I forgot about this, I'm going to toss 1 in here for us to kind of like come back to, is, whoops, did not work, it is the tool card that is specific just to Glaceon, and it has no recruit cost and no weakness. This is going to be helpful for certain matchups, but not like, it's not as incredibly helpful as other people would necessarily think that it will be, but it will be helpful in specific matchups, especially against things like the Zamazenta, the Crown Zenith Zamazenta, as well as the Dialga V Origin Form, that are kind of the more prominent metal attacking cards that are out there right now. Turns off the weakness, and also it lets you be able to retreat it away into something else. So
I think that's the bigger thing, is that it's like that Zamazenta helps, like that hits, that will be the one you're worried about, but like being able to run away, especially when you're locking them, is so nice.
Oh yeah. And so the next thing that we kind of want to look into, and we'll add more of these if we go back in and we decide that this is what we're actually going to want, but the next kind of question is the consistency question, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So what I'm always trying to think through is with Glaceon, V-Star, VMAX, Glaceon with Butt Glaceon, one thing that's all true about all of these Pokemon is they all use water energy, and they are all Pokemon V. And so there's an excellent card that goes well with the water Pokemon and water Pokemon V, and in my opinion, that is Melanie, which I think, personally, that you want to run at least 2 to 3 of these, maybe even 4 at one point. I would say 3 is probably the max that you'll really want, because there's another great card that I'll dive into in a second that will also really help this out. But what Melanie does, if you have a water energy in your discard pile, then you can attach that to one of your Pokemon V, and keep in mind, V-Star and VMAX also count as Pokemon V. Then you get to also draw 3 cards. So on top of attaching, you're also going to be able to draw 3 cards. So
you at least want 3 of that.
Oh yeah, I would say 3 is probably really good, because the next card that I would go in there for consistency of really being able to help this thing out is there's another super broken water supporter card out there.
There's a couple of the other cards, but
It
Irida's
is
right here.
Irida.
There
I
she
think
is.
this is one of the most broken cards in the game. This is like Arven is really, really good. We talked about like the potential of Arven it being like the 61st card. This is your like, 10th card that goes in there. If you decide you're playing a water deck, more often than not, you're going to want Irida in it.
Yes.
More often than not. There could be an exception, but
I will also say Irida is one of my favorite characters in all of Pokemon for one reason and one reason only. Her partner is a Glaceon in the game.
True.
Which means if you're building a Glaceon deck, you know who you really need? You need the one who's partnered with Glaceon.
Oh, yeah.
I would put a 2 of count for her.
I think a 2 of?
I think a 2 of for now.
Okay. I think that either... Yeah, let's start with 2. Because right now, all Irida is getting out is it's getting these guys. Yeah. This is more of an energy acceleration. This is more of a finding of your boys. So...
Mm-hmm.
Or girls. I don't know. I don't know what these things are. But with
these ice foxes.
Do what?
These ice foxes.
These ice foxes. So moving away from kind of like those first 2 supporters, some really easy ones that also kind of like toss in there just, research. Professor's Research, a great one. Do you have a preferred Professor's Research? This is your deck, so I want to make it.
It is my deck. Juniper is the best Professor's Research besides Seda. I mean, Seda's fun, Tulio's fun, but Juniper, right there, Gen 5 representation.
There we go. So we got Juniper tossing her in there. We're going to start off with 1, being able to change that on up. And then also, another great card to toss in there in almost any deck is you've got Boss's Orders.
Yep, and I would throw a Cyrus in there.
We got Cyrus popping on in there. So we got Cyrus. Switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active Pokemon. And then so far, you've got a good just kind of lineup of different supporters that can kind of start to help you out. Typically, there is a magic number of supporters. This is not a hard and fast rule, but there is typically a magic number of supporter cards that most decks really want to run. And so, Dalton, what is your magic number for supporters? Because I've got one in mind, but
I don't have one in mind. But I would say, quick maths off of what I do. I would say if you have more than 9, you have too many.
Okay. I typically aim for somewhere between, I would say like 8 to 11 is typically where I aim for my supporter counts, because it adds enough of the consistency, and then also like you can go with a lower count and you can play Palpad, or you can go with a little bit of a higher count. And so, off of the top of your head, are there any other supporter cards that you can think of that can really go in and mesh well with this deck?
Well, there are 2 more, because I've tried to build this deck a couple times. So there are 2 more that I would include. One of is Clara. I think that earlier we talked about what is your 61st card. I think Clara is my 63rd.
Okay.
I think Clara is a phenomenal card in almost any deck. This is a great Pokemon recovery. This is a great energy recovery because it comes back to hand instead of into deck. I think Clara is better than Miriam. I would want at least 1 Clara in this deck.
Okay.
And the other one would be Judge. I think that Judge currently is just... You need Judge. Until Iono comes out, Judge is going to be the thing that kind of shuts down your opponent, what they're doing, and especially with Glaceon trying to get you stuck up in the active spot, you want to stop them. And I think you need at least 1 Judge.
Do you have a favorite Judge?
I really am partial to the Sun and Moon Judge, which is the guy who's yellow shirt.
Right? Oh, is this the Sun and Moon? Is this older than Sun and Moon? Yeah, this is the like more
XY
area. Yeah. So we've got this Judge, the Forbidden Light Judge, shuffling 4 cards into the deck. So this is our main, like you said, this is our main disruption card kind of coming out right now until we have Iono, which honestly would even help to make this deck kind of flourish even farther than that. Yep. So right now we're looking at a pretty good supporter line. I feel like some of these don't necessarily have to be in here, but this is always like a good start for it, of like when you're thinking through what do I actually put in this deck. what are the cards that are going to be helpful? How many of them do I need is then the next question, and then then the next question after that is how will I find these cards? So the Glaceon used to thrive under the Shady Dealings engine because, with Irida mixed with that, it was very easy to be able to search out literally every single card that you can really think of. Right now, we've lost the Shady Dealings engine. And so we're kind of looking at a few different engines currently. So as of right now, the draw engines for different things, you have the Lost Zone engine. And so you've got different things where you can play things like Comfy. Oh, these are older Lost Zone engines. You've got different things like Comfy that you're able to look at and draw, or look at the top two cards, put one into the Lost Zone, and then that leads you into our Mirage Gate. But if you're using Mirage Gate, then you have to use multiple different types of energy. And I don't really know if that's going to be the route that we really want to go with that. And so, especially if we're playing Melanie. I mean, we could also play Cramorant, which is another water Pokemon, but I don't think that's a good idea because we have to commit a lot more to Colress's Experiment, and there's all kinds of different stuff that kind of goes from there. So, another great draw engine that is very, very solid. I think I said it earlier, this is my draw engine of choice. If I had to put just any two cards into a deck, it is the B-Barrel with the Industrious Incisors. So it lets you just draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. So as long as you are getting rid of cards, you've got 5 cards in your hand, good to go. And so I don't know necessarily if this is going to be our best choice, but this is definitely a choice. This is definitely an option. And I'll go into it why it's not the best option, in my opinion. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but as well as there is the Revavroom. I did not spell this right. Who let me type things? We've got Revavroom, which has got the Rumbling Engine ability. So similar to B-Barrel, you discard a card, and then you can draw until you have 6 cards in your hand. This would go really, really well over with your Melanie engine. So being able to discard a water energy. Now you have an extra water energy in the discard, and you're able to go back into that and get a lot of those different things. And then one of the other main current draw engines right now is also the Kirlias. So I don't know what the best one currently is, because with Kirlia, you're able to Refinement, get rid of 2 cards. You could even go into a Gardevoir, which lets you to accelerate even more energy on top of that off the top of your deck. So in my opinion, there's a couple of different options, a couple of different choices. I'm leaning a little bit towards potentially a Kirlia or potentially a Revavroom. But do you have any thoughts? Do you have any opinions on helping to cycle through the deck and getting the different cards?
I do, and I've also got one you kind of forgot, which is I think that Arceus V-Star, what we talked about earlier, this is the partner that Arceus has been looking for.
Okay.
I think that Arceus V-Star, what it is doing, it is bringing in these ideas of accelerating your 3 energy, that I think this could be a very good Arceus partner. I think that Arceus V-Star coming in and hitting these 3 basic water energies out of your deck throws it in. The only problem is, like we talked about before, this is a 2-prize liability on your bench. Yep. And so I would say either the Arceus is the move or the Revavroom is the move. I think that Revavroom, that draw to 6 is great, and then having the ability to throw the water from Melanie down is great. But I think that Arceus V-Star is probably the optimal move here.
Oh, yeah. No, I think Arceus V-Star is great. Arceus V-Star also requires certain things like, the Arceus V. And typically, what I've been playing in my Arceus V-Star list is I've got a 4-2. You might even go up into a 4-3. We'll start with a 4-3, and we can always work our way back down, just kind of depending on the different things that go in with that. And one of the nice things about running the Arceus V-Star is you'll need less Melanie overall. It turns Melanie into a little bit more of a tech card so that you don't necessarily have to play around relying on the Melanie to be there. You can play around relying more on the consistency of the Arceus to actually be there as well. And so
Melanie becomes the late game play, not the I need this turn 2 play.
Mm-hmm. And then with Arceus, if Arceus is the way that we're going to kind of lean towards and kind of lean into, you have to have double turbo energy. Well, I guess you don't have to have it, but you're wrong if you don't have it. It's kind of what I'll tell you. And so you're able to go in there. Do what?
I agree with that, but it's also because it's like, look at Glaceon V and Glaceon V Max both.
Mm-hmm.
They both have an attack that is a water and 2 colorless, which means your double turbo also charges your Glaceon in the late game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so on top of this also goes into kind of like what we were saying with the Glaceon V Star and the Glaceon V Max can help to kind of clean up a little bit more of the damage that is going into here, which has been kind of like the nice part of with Arceus. When you're accelerating the energy, you're hitting for 180, like you're doing 180 damage, and then after that, once you get the energy on there, you're doing another 180 and or a 150 in a snipe. So it's like you're hitting that 180 or you're hitting that 210 with the Arceus V-Star if you add in a choice belt. And then also you're able to clean up with a 30 damage snipe with a max icicle, also walling off some VMAXs, which can help a little bit more in the like Regieleki VMAX decks. And so there's a lot of just different mind games, different playing for different things that you can kind of think through. So I love the Arceus V-Star side of things. The only recommendation I would say, I actually don't think that we need as many Glaceon V
if you've got that Arceus. Yeah.
Because then this way you could start to get more Glaceon actually on the board, because you're ideally not using Frozen Awakening. You're ideally having your energy attached to your Arceus V and then evolving with the actual Glaceon V into a V-Star later. So
yeah,
perfect. So now we've kind of got a little bit more of the feel for it. In my opinion, if we're switching this over to having Arceus V and V-Star as kind of more of the acceleration of energy and more of the engine towards how it's going to work, then we're definitely going to need a lot more research.
Yes. I would say we probably want 3 research. I think that is the magic number here, because we're trying to throw things away. We want to get that Arceus as quickly as we can. I think a 3 of the research is the move.
Honestly, I would even say if we go up into a 4 of, just because I think that having a 4 of the research, just the extra added consistency of like turn 1 going second or turn 2, kind of more that guarantee of if I don't have my Arceus in my starting hand, I need to get to that Arceus, because everything kind of starts with that Arceus. And for me, also very similarly, I think that Judge is a great card that also helps to like disrupt once you get into a certain thing with like the rest of your guys. And honestly, if we're moving away from like having more water Pokemon on our side of the bench, we don't necessarily even really need Irida anymore, because Irida only really searches out the Glaceons, and using the supporters, you'd almost rather use a different supporter for turn.
Yes, but I want to bring it back. I have an idea for a spicy deck that Irida helps with, and that is right here. I think this is the card to play. I think that Starmie V is what's going to help make this deck relevant. Okay. I think that Glaceon on its own can do some stuff, but it doesn't quite get there. I think that Starmie's V Swift, being able to hit through if you ever happen to come upon somebody who's trying to wall you off, and I think that being able to come through with that energy spiral, especially in a Lugia heavy format, this is the card that is going to help get you over the edge, because doing that extra 50 damage for each energy in a Lugia heavy format, you're hitting the numbers you want to hit pretty consistent.
Not only with Lugia, but you're also able to use it against a Gardevoir deck that's like loading up all of that energy onto like a Zacian or onto a Gardevoir, and then you can just switch it around and be able to like boss up. You can boss's orders up the oh my goodness, what is the name of that card? You can boss's orders up the Gardevoir EX. So then you're able to use the energy spiral, using that damage on that. You'll get knocked back out, but then now they don't have any energy acceleration, so then you're able to take out the next knockout coming on in and coming out through. So my only question is, for me, I would imagine that without using Irida, I would say you would want to like more prioritize Melanie in this case, so that you're not having to Irida for it, put it on the bench, attack with the Arceus, so then you're like one turn behind on your Starmie.
True.
You can use Starmie as like the backup thing where it's like, all right, I am going to Ultra Ball for my. I'm gonna Ultra Ball, Capturing Aroma, whatever the Nest Ball for the Starmie. Slap that thing down on my bench, Melanie to it, attach an energy, and we're good to go, and we're swinging. So for me, I would say Irida is maybe a 1 at the most, but honestly, I would say Melanie is a much higher priority than the Starmie itself, or than the Irida itself.
Yeah. I think Melanie is a big one. We definitely need at least 2 or 3 of Melanie. I think Irida, if we have room at the end, we want a 1 of.
Yeah. Let's say I accidentally took out the boss's orders. I'm going to add in a second one of the boss's orders. And so what are we at right now? We've got 4, 6, 8, 10. Ooh, we've got 11. So we can go down on something else in just a second. But 11, that's my max. It's my capping out for supports. So we can either change some up. We can add some different things in. I think that you definitely need 2 boss's orders to be able to hit those numbers on different things so that you have a little bit more targeted.
The only card we're missing that I like to put into most decks, and I think that it would come in at the expense of one of our 2 judges, is a Serena. I think Serena is a really solid card because you're pulling up a lot of those Vs, but it's also in a deck where you're trying to run Melanie and you're trying to pull that water back from discard, that you want to find a way to get that down. I think that Serena is a very good 1 of, so maybe 1 judge, 1 Serena.
So we could either go 1 judge, 1 Serena, or we can get rid of the Clara, which I personally feel like you want to have more of those things in your discard pile.
Yeah.
And so you want to keep your energy more often than not in your discard pile. In the Pokemon, if you're getting the Pokemon back, by the time that you're actually getting those Pokemon back, you're probably already too far behind to actually keep those attackers in my opinion.
Fair.
The only thing that the only counter to that is if you lose Starmie early, you're out the Starmie, but then you just have to play around not having the Starmie. And so, similar to how you said earlier, just, pilot the deck better. So,
sounds like a skill issue.
Does sound like a skill issue. And so we've got kind of a little bit of our main line. The only other things that I would add into here is that we can add in a Radiant card. And I think a great Radiant card to add into this is he's a water attacker, and he also helps get the energy into the discard. There's one other choice and one other option that I think that we could use, so I'll talk about the first one first. But there is Radiant Greninja, and so Radiant Greninja, he is the all-star of all of the Radiants, in my opinion. It's him. There's Charizard that's kind of close behind him, and then there's some other ones that kind of piddle around a little bit lower. So, but with Radiant Greninja, you're able to put a energy card into the discard, and then you can draw two cards. You can also use the water energy, we've been talking about this entire time, as part of the attack where you're going to do 90 to different Pokemon onto the bench. And so, or not even onto the bench, just 90 to 2 Pokemon. So if there
one
is
up top, one on the bottom, wherever.
Lost Box player that's not expecting it, that's 2 Comfies. That's 2 Comfies right there that they weren't expecting, because they always prize the Manaphy. They never have it.
No, and if it's a Gardevoir player, they never have the Manaphy either. Take 2 Curlius, just right there.
They want to have 4 Ralts out there. They don't have any room for the Manaphy. They don't got the Manaphy like that.
They don't.
So there's this. The only other card that I can really think of that might actually potentially help in here that I've used for a couple of different cards is Radiant Gardevoir. So, it does let me put 2 Radiants in here. All right, that's cool. It's Radiant Gardevoir. So all of your Pokemon take 20 less damage from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon V. This just kind of helps let them live a little bit longer, just in case. But in this kind of matchup, in this kind of thing, that's not necessarily... I don't think it's going to help to change a ton of the different numbers, but it would be another contender just in case. There's also the, discard a water energy, put 2 damage counters onto any of those Pokemon. Not ideal, not great. You've got Astral Misfortune, can flip some coins, but not really ideal.
I'm always down for coin flipping, but that might not be the move here.
So
Venusaur might be okay, Venusaur to kind of get that consistency, but also if you're relying on that, something's gone wrong. So
and that's why if there is any room at the very end, like how you said, if there's room for Irida, if there's room for maybe even like a very light B barrel line that kind of like rounds different things out, if we need to change up the numbers on anything, kind of helps a little bit of the consistency of the draw engine for it. I think that could potentially help and could potentially go in there, but outside of this, I don't think that there's really a better choice than our Radiant Greninja. There's only one other water Pokemon that I would consider for this kind of like lineup, and I don't like this card. I'm strongly against it, but I know it's a favorite in a lot of different people's. It is the Empoleon, which helps out with just kind of slowing down the like Lost Box engines. The only reason I don't love this card, even though it can swing, even though it just needs the water and the double colorless to hit for 110, which knocks out your Cramorants and kind of below, so that includes like the Cramorant, Sableye, Comfeys, even the Haluchas that come on in. It's not great. It's not a very good card. You also can't just play one, which is the biggest issue. Like, because if they have Escape Rope, which most Lost Zone decks already have Escape Rope, then they've already kind of got an out to it. They don't even have to play like a boss. They don't have to play a supporter. It's just a like one card, and they play 4 of them, and they're probably going to be able to get to the 4 of them regardless. And so, in my opinion, I think that the healthier tech is the Starmie over the Empoleon. But if, you know, as you're watching this, if you want to add this into your deck, if you think that, like, no, Austin's wrong, and, you know, never wrong about Empoleon, Empoleon's bad. Empoleon, man, bad.
Empoleon's bad.
That is also another option that can kind of go in there. But I think we're good to kind of... Oh, sorry.
The only other Pokemon I would think about, the only one, I'm surprised you didn't think about it, because I had it in my version of it that didn't run well, is I had a 1-1 line of these boys. I think the 1-1 I think helps. I think that like actually running like a Vulpix deck, not good. But like
the
1-1
Hey now.
If you're trying to build Glaceon, Vulpix is not the move. But I think a 1-1 tech, if you've got room, I think that's the spice that's going to get you there and get you over the edge.
Okay. I mean, I do like it. I love me some Vulpix. I think Vulpix is amazing. I think Vulpix is great. It also does the 1 energy with a double turbo. It also helps to answer a lot of the different, you know, matches that are similar to, like it's an easy win against a Gardevoir. It is an easy win against, Miraidon. It is an easy win against Goodra. It just really helps to be able to make people have to play around certain just dumb mechanics and dumb things that are going on into it. So I personally, I like it. I like it a lot. I wasn't going to put it in there because I wanted the shining light of this deck to be Glaceon, but this does help to answer out a little bit of things. This was going to be, like, I was actually saving this to be something that we discussed, like, more near the end if we had space on in there. But I love it. See, I love these cards.
I think having the Glaceon engine, I think having Arceus backup Glaceon, and then having Starmie and having Vulpix for, like, your spicy techs. That it's like, this answers a lot of the meta. Glaceon can handle most of the heavy lifting. But if you need somebody else, you've got either Vulpix or you've got Starmie. I think that's what you need. I think that will make this deck sing, and that's why Glaceon's not been seen. It's because we don't see a lot of these kind of things. It's not great on its own. So you need these other cards, and I think these are the 2 that help.
I agree. No, I 100% agree. I think these are fantastic techs, not just because I'm a big Vulpix enjoyer, but I think these are actually really good answers to things that you'll probably see that will make Glaceon struggle. So moving a little bit more on to the just engine to help make this. It's the not just the cards themselves, but it is also, it's not just the Pokemon themselves, but it is also the it's the trainers that kind of go along with it. We talked a little bit about the supporters. Nest Ball, search your deck for a basic Pokemon, put it onto your bench. You need this card because this helps to give you outs to Starmie, Greninja, Arceus V, and your Glaceon, and also your Vulpix. Helps to get them out as fast as you possibly can, and really the main strategy of this is Arceus V Star, like Arceus V, Arceus V Star. So I want to start off with Arceus V. Personally, I would say we need 4 of these. And or Battle VIP Pass, but I think Battle VIP Pass is bad. So
I disagree, but I don't think it works in this deck.
I think Battle VIP Pass is great. It makes me upset that it's a great card, which is why I think it's
I
bad.
I love VIP Pass, and I think that it's good in so many decks. I don't think this is one that it's good in.
And then on top of that, I think that we also need Ultra Ball. Easy to help to set it up. Let me see, which one did I get from this? I got the Scarlet and Violet one, so we got a match. So
you want a 4-3. You want 4 Nest Ball, 3 Ultra Ball.
4 Nest Ball, 3 Ultra Ball. The only other thing that I would consider, and I've done this in some of my decks, is I've done with all of these. Now, hear me out. Hear me out. We love flipping coins. Is I've had
You're
a
not
4-3-2.
going to convince me otherwise. I love this card.
I've had 4-3-2, and this is like capturing aroma, especially in an Arceus deck, is so important that I don't think that people realize, because this gets you just a card. Just gets you any one card, which you need. You just need any one card, which is all that this deck really is about.
And I agree with the other side that it's like, because the big argument for capturing aroma came with Lugia. It is bad in Lugia.
Oh, it's bad.
It is so good in everything else. Like, this card is so much fun because you always just need to see things, especially with, like, look at our count. We've got 17 Pokemon.
Yep.
This is grabbing what you want. This is grabbing what you need. This is setting you up for any play that you want to run with. Lugia doesn't want it. This deck definitely does. Get over yourself, put it in.
And another very weird kind of just how I figure out different things that I'm going to need for my decks is I double check and see, I'm like, do I have search cards do I have at least half the amount of search cards for whatever the item, like whatever the item or Pokemon or whatever the thing is, at comparatively to the cards that I'm looking for. So like Nest Ball counts as you getting 4 Pokemon because you have 4 Nest Ball. So that is 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you got 4 Nest Ball to get out to look for 10 Pokemon. You got Ultra Ball, so you've got 7 outs to it. Even with capturing aroma, 9 outs to get 10 Pokemon. And then from the other side of it, you've got 7 evolution Pokemon. You've got like 5 outs to get 7 evolution Pokemon. So in my mind, you've got over half of the probability to even get these Pokemon. And yeah, I do think about this on a numbers standpoint. This is why my decks, even though they're not good, they function very well.
Yep.
But
they work.
So that they actually do get you to the cards that you need and get you to the things that you're actually looking for. So I think that a 4-3-2 is fantastic for this. Another card I was looking at is Switch. So we've got Switch, which I'm going to go ahead and just make this actually into an item card, which it did not really like. Nope, just got over trainers. Cool, we're just going to keep going. So there were 2 cards that I think that we really need. I think that we need Switch, just a basic, regular Switch. I think that we also need Escape Rope. I am a big Escape Rope enjoyer. Trying to find the switches.
Especially in a deck where you're running your main attacker, who when they hit, you can't retreat. You want to force them to bring something else up. They're like, I'll just retreat next turn. No, you will not retreat next turn because I just hit you with the Icicle Shot. You are stuck up there, so I'm either taking that KO or I'm forcing you to have a switch.
Yep.
This deck wants Escape Rope.
You've either got the attack with whatever you're attacking me with, or you have a switch. Like, that's really all that it is. And so Escape Rope and Switch are fantastic just inclusions in any form of this style of deck. Also because the main thing about Arceus V-Star is you want to attack with Arceus V-Star, but typically you're star birthing to be able to get Arceus V-Star into the active or get him out of the active. So you want to be able to find the card, the energy, and like just any answer to what you're going to be stepping into, and Switch or Escape Rope are oftentimes what you're going to need, and you need both. You can't convince me that you don't need both.
No, I agree with you.
I will argue to the ends of the earth, to you viewers, that you need both. Escape Rope, Switch, can't tell me otherwise. Cool. In any Arceus deck. So, but yeah, so we've got some trainers and some different things in here. There is also some things like we've got the Snow Leaf badge. We've got some, we have some potential of, there is another spicy tech that nobody loves, but this is also a really good protector of your damaged and weakened like Arceus, your damaged and weakened Glaceon if they're not able to like knock it all the way out. It's not a great card. It's also not a great tech, but it's a possibility. Since we have Snowleaf Badge, I think that that's a little bit more important. But I would say a oh my goodness, what is that called? Choice Belt. A Choice Belt is a little bit more important to have. Maybe a one-off of a Choice Belt with like maybe one or two of the Snowleaf Badges.
Well, I will say one card for as much as you will defend and rally for the escape rope, the one card that I love to at least have I want a 3 of in every deck. Like, this is a card that when I'm building a deck, I build this in first and then see if it fits. And that is the Trekking Shoes. I think that this is the card that you want. I think this works so well in this deck because you're throwing the water away, you're seeing more cards, you have the chance of getting stuff in your discard pile, which Glaceon wants anyway. You have the chance of getting things set and ready to run. I think that a 3 of Trekking Shoes is the extra consistency boost you need. If you're not running the barrel and you're not running the Rever Room, that's going to help you see extra cards. That's going to help you see the things you need to see.
Mm-hmm. So we got some Trekking Shoes that can kind of fight on in there. And then last but not least, one of the main, most important things that you always need to consider is you need to consider some form of stadium as you're going on into here. I think that the only other card that I would toss in here as like a maybe is a Pal Pad. Nope, that's not there.
Maybe a one of.
Like a one of a Pal Pad. That's like a maybe that kind of goes in. But we'll put some water energy in there in a minute, and I'll tell you kind of how I think through with energy. I don't know for any of that. We'll get to that. What was the card we were just talking? Stadiums. Stadium. In this deck, there are 2 that I would put on my radar immediately, or there's 3 technically, but 2 that I would put on my radar immediately. One, I think that's great, would be Collapsed. Did I spell Collapsed wrong?
I agree with that.
It's Collapsed spelled? Oh, this is because I'm still set on
You're energy. On energy still, yeah.
Collapse Stadium. I think Collapse Stadium is a great idea. I think that this card is a great idea, even though it's so bad.
Not in this deck.
And then the only other one that I can think of that's like actually halfway decent. I think that these 3, so Path to the Peak turns off. If a Pokemon with a rule box is in play, it have no abilities. It is great as a like just kind of counter to anything that is a strong ability user. So in theory, it can turn off things like the Regieleki VMAX. And the only reason that I would say to put a Path in there while you're also running a Alolan Vulpix V-Star, which, Austin, isn't that counterintuitive? Yes, if you're dumb and you play both at the same time, so don't. Because really, like, the big thing about this is here to help to counter the things that have abilities. If you play this, nothing has abilities anymore. So this is mainly in here if you prize Alolan V-Star or the V-Star or just the regular V, because Path can still help out in so many other different like scenarios and so many other different like things that are going on as well. So Path is great. Lake Acuity. Lake Acuity is awesome because all Pokemon that have any water or fighting energy attached, both yours and your opponents, take 20 less damage from attacks from the opponent's Pokemon. So you've got, well, we don't have water energy in here right now, but water energy. Let's see, water energy, fantastic. Oh, I can load more water energy. Let me see. Let me see, where my water energy that I like? No, they don't have the design that I like. Aw, sad. All right. Well, then we're just going to put these bad boys in there because these are just the fun ones. It won't let me put more in there. All right, cool. Well, we're at 60 right now, so we'll go ahead and we'll change some stuff out when we actually get there. And last but not least, Collapse Stadium. Collapse Stadium is great because it lets you kind of like limit their bench, which is awesome, especially if they're playing something like Gardevoir, especially if they're playing something like Lost Box, especially if they're playing something like Regieleki VMAX with the Miraidon, with the Raikus. It is great to be able to kind of like limit people's benches. Palkia is also a great option for it to be able to like limit the bench on that. So you're going to take less damage from the Palkia. So ultimately, this is a halfway decent card that I think is like, pretty helpful. It can help you get there. It can help give answers to different problems. And so Cool. So as of right now, if we're just kind of looking at this as a whole, whoops, wrong button. If we're looking at this as a whole, you've got all kinds of different things. Let me see if I can zoom out. Where's my zoom out function? If you are going to look at this as a whole, as of right now, kind of what we're looking at, we have got the RCSV, you got the RCSV stars, you've got some Glaceon in there with some Glaceon V stars and Glaceon V maxes, as well as just kind of giving you all kinds of different attackers. And so going on in and looking a little bit more through, you got all kinds of different supporters that are really helpful. You've got some bosses, you've got some judges, you got some researches, you got some Melanies, and then also moving on down, you've got a Snow Leaf badge, like a Snow Leaf badge or two with some water energies. And personally, we're going to have to go back through, look at this a little bit differently as I zoom us back in so we can actually, see what these cards look like. And we're going to have to change up just a few things because right now we don't have enough energy to actually help to supply a lot of the attacking that we really need to do. I think that we need one, maybe two more water energy to help us to actually get fully there. So
I think an easy give is one of our double turbos. I think that we only need 3.
Okay. So I think that I agree with you in the sense of like the whole main purpose is that we want to accelerate the water energy itself, and the basic energy is the thing that we're a little bit more high on. The other thing that, in my opinion, and you can let me know if this is crazy, I run a 4 RCS2 V-Star line, and the reason that I do that is because RCSV, super important to get out onto the bench. RCSV Star, you only really need 1. So, and like to actually get to your RCSV Star, you've got your Ultra Balls, you've got your super fun coin flips, and you've got your just top deck ability. And so actually be able to get to
just draw
your
cards
RCSV
better.
Star. Yeah, just draw it. Just do that. You can have your RCSV Star, which is going to be incredibly like helpful for you, but you only really need 1 because you only really need 1 that's like accelerating that energy to getting to all of your Pokemon, and then if it gets knocked out, then you have Melanie as the backup to be able to accelerate even more energy. But then by that point, you're hopefully set up with your Glaceon V stars, with your Alolan Vulpix V stars. You can also Melanie to your Starmies in different matchups for all kinds of different stuff. So
I would even go down to 3 RCSVs. It's like you want to have it turn 1, but you've got so many searching cards and so much like shuffle ability within your deck with the research, with the shoes. You're going to find that pretty often. I think you only need 3.
Yeah. Honestly, even now that I'm looking at this, I think 9 energy might be a little bit too much just because you've got, let's see, so you need double turbo and 1 energy. So you need double turbo and 1 energy on your RCSV Star. And then that leaves you 7 energy to be able to accelerate. So that's 2 RCSV Star attacks that you can then super accelerate over to those Pokemon. So if we do need to keep that RCSV, we absolutely can. But now we've got 2 flex spots. And so, you know what I said about my 2 flex spots? He's not an energy card.
Okay, so I see what you're saying, but I think that the Bidoof is the wrong move here.
Yeah.
Because I have a different flex spot that I think that we should use,
Okay.
and it comes in the form of a stadium. That one of my favorite stadiums currently, because of last format, and I think that we're moving back towards it, is the Temple. I think that Temple needs to be a one of here.
Okay.
Temple of Sinnoh, what you're doing is you are knocking off a Lugia deck. They cannot do what they want to do. They've got to use a turn to attack with Lugia to get rid of that. And it also does not hurt you the way that Path does not slow you down the way that the Collapsed might, and it's not, even though it's not healing or helping you like Acuity is, what it's doing is it's guaranteeing that with your Vulpix, you're safe from another path. I think that having that extra flex with another stadium is good, and I think that Temple is not the best card, but if you've got the room, Temple helps.
So right now we've got Collapsed, Lake Acuity, and Temple in here. I just bumped out the Path. So do you think that we need more than just like more of one, less of one to kind of help with a little bit of the consistency of it, or?
If you were going to do an extra of any of them, I would do 2 Temple just because it doesn't hurt you, or maybe 2 Acuity because it does help you. But I think that having 1/1/1 is probably good.
I think that if anything, the Acuity would probably be better, just because the Temple could hurt you if you're trying to like use your RCSV Star to like return an attack with. But that's the only opportunity that I would really see where that would be not ideal and not great. So But I'm probably going to go back down to 1 Acuity, 1 Collapse, and then 1 Temple. But the Temple does 100% help you out with just the Lugia aspect of different things. It forces Lugia to actually be the attacker to knock that out, and Lugia can do maximum 220, 250 with a choice belt. So, I don't know. It's great. And nothing really, besides your Alolan Vulpix V-Star, nothing really gets knocked out by Lugia with a choice belt. But if you're already attacking with your Alolan Vulpix V-Star, it can't hit you anyways. So I don't know what it's going to do. So.
Well, with our last 2 spots, we've got room for a couple of the fun techs we've talked about. So I think that an Irida could be good here. I think a Raihan could be good here. I think if we could throw in a singular fighting energy and a Zapdos V, that could be good here.
That's what I'm gonna do. I'm taking out. Let's see. I'm taking out the Raihan. Taking out the Raihan. So we got Galarian Zapdos V. Wait, which art do you have? You have this art.
I use
like
the
you
fun
have that.
artwork.
You have that
well.
art in real life. This one.
Yep, that's the one.
Got the Galarian Zapdos V, and then a Fighting Energy.
Singular fighting energy.
Singular Fighting Energy. Hold on, we gotta find.
Let's throw in the gold, just
the gold one.
fancy.
Yeah, there we go. We put them. Slap in the gold one. Is there a better gold one? Nah, I don't like that one as much. This one's cool. This one's okay. I don't know. That one's fine. That energy's fine. I think honestly, if we go up in 1 fighting energy, we can go down in 1 water, because the fighting energy can be a flex spot for one of those colorless things. Because I used to play the Espeon VMAX and also the Flying Pikachu VMAX. So it's like for these attackers, sometimes you only need 1 energy. Arceus, it can take the fighting energy also. Might not even need it. So we'll put the Galarian Zapdos in there. This helps you with any kind of like fight or any kind of really a lot of decks. It really helps you out with. So
like it hits those magic numbers. You throw that belt on there, like we talked about earlier. If you're hitting up against the Miraidons, you win. If you're hitting against Lugias, you win. If you're hitting against another Arceus, you win. It's like Zapdos is the move right there.
Oh yeah. So the only thing that I would argue with is, instead of trekking shoes, if we did some B barrels, but I know you like the trekking shoes. So the only card, we've got 1 spot. Put him in there.
Do it.
Let's do that nest stash. No, that sounds really bad.
Now, if you're going to do any one of Pokemon, the Pidgeot might be nice.
Ah, Pukey Mewtwo. I see you're a man of culture.
Like, throwing that guy away. That could be nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So being able to take him, put him on the bottom of your deck, that's a fantastic card. I love that card. Well, this is currently our build of this deck. I'm going to see if I can export let's see, can I export the list? I think I can export the list if I can find out how to actually do that, and then put it in the description for you guys. So if you want to check it out, if you want to try it out on anything, maybe I'll put it on PTCGL and export that over into the description of our thing. Try it out. Let us know how it goes. Let us know how bad the deck is, but also on top of that, let us know how much fun you have playing some bad decks.
Exactly.
That's one of our favorite things to do.
We're not telling you what's going to win stuff. We're telling you you're going to have fun playing it. That's the difference.
Exactly. Well, that is going to conclude. Whoops. Awesome. Here we go. Let me see one more thing. Stop that. Go back over here and then go up into that. Boom. Perfect video editing. We're going to get into that a little bit later, but that concludes our week's episode of Let's Build a Deck. I hope that you guys had just as much fun as we were having. It was a blast. One of my favorite things is just to put a whole bunch of random cards together and see kind of like what comes out of that.
See what happens.
As we're kind of finishing this thing out, Dalton, you want to help close us out?
I do. First, I promised you all card 3 of my 60 cards of Meowscarada. There is nothing better in this deck. So honestly, I've been shuffling this entire time. You've probably seen me shuffling. I have no idea what this top deck is.
Oh, that could be bad.
We're going to see what this top deck is. We're going to see if it's the spice. If it's not the spice, we don't know. It's the spice. Here it comes.
It is the spice. Are we revealing it?
It is Sprigatito, number 2. Did I know it was Sprigatito? No, I did not. I honestly just drew the next card. So we know with the Meowscarada deck, it runs Sprigatito. So we've seen fantastic. 2 of them, and we've seen a switch. So you have no idea what the other 57 cards are, but there we go. That is the spice coming in.
Hey, we're getting
all right. So that is what we've got with Reveal a Card here. And then if you want to keep up with our content, we are obviously on YouTube. That's where you found us here. We are also accessible on Twitter. We are accessible on Facebook. We are accessible on Instagram. We are slowly growing the brand.